A piece by this composer for violin and piano opens with a repeated 16th note, 32nd rest, 32nd note rhythm on a melody that begins with the notes G flat, A flat, G flat, A flat, B flat. This composer imitated the call of a scarlet tanager in the third movement scherzo of a string quartet that begins with a pentatonic viola solo. This composer of 8 humoresques for piano included a notable English horn solo in the largo second movement of his most famous symphony. This composer's Ninth Symphony was influenced by the African-American spirituals he encountered on a trip to Iowa. For 10 points, name this Czech composer of the New World Symphony. And the answer is Antonin Dvorak. In an opera by this composer, a knight sings the aria Sol da te after drinking a love potion. A Siciliano movement marked Largo e Spiccato is included in the 11th piece in this composer's Opus 3. In the second movement of a piece by this composer, a repeated 8th note quarter note viola rhythm is marked to be played always very loud. This composer of L'Estro Armonico and 2 versions of Orlando Furioso wrote a set of pieces that include instructions like The Barking Dog and The Drunkards Have Fallen Asleep. Those concertos are included in The Contest Between Harmony and Invention. For 10 points, name this Italian composer of the Four Seasons. And the answer is Antonio Vivaldi. This musician improvised a jazz break to open his solo during a 1946 recording of A Night in Tunisia with Miles Davis. Charles Mingus's Mingus Revisited was originally released under the title this musician's name. After pawning his instrument for heroin, this musician used a Grafton plastic instrument to perform in a famous quintet at Massey Hall. This musician reworked a theme from Ray Noble's Cherokee for his composition, Coco. He quoted How High the Moon in a song that references his nickname, Ornithology. For 10 points, name this bebop saxophonist who was nicknamed Bird. And the answer is Charlie Bird Parker Jr. A hunchbacked band leader who played this instrument recorded A Tisket a Tasket with Ella Fitzgerald. Chick Webb played this instrument, as did a band leader known for performing a medley of Leonard Bernstein's West Side Story. The hard bop album Moanin' was recorded by a player of this instrument and his jazz messengers. Dave Brubeck wrote Take 5 to showcase Joe Morello's ability on this instrument. With bass, guitar, and piano, this instrument makes up a typical jazz rhythm section. For 10 points, Art Blakely and Buddy Rich played what percussion instrument which requires sticks? And the answer is drums. While living in this country, American composer George Antheil incorporated 3 fans, 16-player pianos, and a siren into his score for an experimental film. A composer from this country used snare drums and heavy brass accents to represent a steam locomotive in his piece Pacific 231. Another composer from this country featured 840 repetitions of a theme in his Vexations and wrote a set of 3 piano pieces named for a dance performed by Naked Spartan Boys. A group of experimental composers from this country, known as the Six, were influenced by a man from this country who composed the Gymnopodes. For 10 points, name this home country of Arthur Honegger and Eric Satie. And the answer is France. A soprano air by this composer begins with the ascending notes B, long E, followed by a dotted 8/16th rhythm on a descending G sharp, F sharp, E. In Act 3 of one of this composer's oratorios, the title character's death is honored with a dead march. Earlier in that oratorio, the Witch of Endor raises the ghost of Samuel. The castrato aria Ombra mai fu opens this composer's opera Circe. The air I Know That My Redeemer Liveth is from one of this composer's oratorios. Its librettist, Charles Jennens, penned the words, "And he shall reign forever and ever," for its most famous chorus, For 10 points, name this composer who included the Hallelujah chorus in his oratorio, Messiah. And the answer is George Frideric Handel. The speaker of a jazz standard set in this city owns a cozy little flat in which she'll settle down right here in town. A band leader from this city invited audiences to sing Heidi, 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 Hi in the scat chorus of his song Minnie the Moocher. Paul Whiteman pioneered symphonic jazz in this city, which is where Cab Calloway led the house band of a whites-only nightclub. Billy Strayhorn composed Take the A Train for a band leader associated with this city's cotton club, Duke Ellington. For 10 points, name this city where jazz flourished during the Harlem Renaissance. And the answer is New York City. Towards the end of this piece, the orchestra pauses, then blasts a dissonant, mostly whole-tone chord topped with an A for 2 bars. The orchestra then builds into its final reprisal of this piece's stride theme. It's not by Copland, but in a 1942 recording of this composition, the opening ritornello theme is played by Benny Goodman. Originally scored for 2 pianos, this piece is mostly performed as orchestrated by Ferd Grofe. This jazz-inspired piece opens with a trill followed by a long glissando in the solo clarinet. For 10 points, name this colorfully named piece by George Gershwin. And the answer is Rhapsody in Blue. A piece written in this genre uses an 8th note motif that begins with the notes G, G sharp, high F, E natural. Stravinsky declared that the piece in this genre would be contemporary forever. Pieces nicknamed Spring and Dissonance are from a group of 6 pieces in this genre dedicated to Haydn. Pieces in this genre include one nicknamed The Joke and another that includes variations on a melody that would become the German national anthem. That set of pieces in this genre is called Erdödy. 68 Haydn pieces and Beethoven's Grosse Fuge were written in, for 10 points, what genre of pieces written for an ensemble of 2 violins, a viola, and a cello? And the answer is string quartets. The second movement of this composition opens with a solo horn playing the slow notes long F, G, A flat, long B flat. At the beginning of this suite, Cole Legno strings play a unison G in a rhythm consisting of triplet eighth notes, 2 quarter notes, 2 eighth notes, and a quarter note. This suite's final movement creates a fade-out effect by closing the door on an offstage woman's chorus. The hymn I Vow to Thee, My Country was set to the melody of one of this suite's movements, which is subtitled The Bringer of Jollity. For 10 points, name this Gustav Holst suite with movements named Mars and Jupiter. And the answer is The Planets.